My father insists I cut down my wedding expenses and give half of my budget to my golden child brother so he can afford his wedding too. He was shocked when the family doormat said no for the first time. I've been planning my wedding for 18 months, saved every penny from overtime shifts at the hospital where I work as a radiologic technician. My fiancé Thomas and I put aside $30,000. We booked a vineyard. I hired a photographer. My brother got a car for his 16th birthday while I took the bus. My parents paid for his college, but I had to take out student loans. When he dropped out junior year to follow his passion as a DJ, Dad called him creative. When I graduated summa cum laude, Dad said anyone could memorize books. Caleb stayed at home rent-free until he was 28. Meanwhile, I was paying my parents $500 a month at 18 because I needed to learn responsibility. Last month, Caleb proposed to his girlfriend, Ashley. They've been together 6 months. He bought the ring on a payment plan he's already behind on. No savings, no real plan, just the usual expectation that someone would bail him out. The next day, Dad called and said Caleb needed help with the wedding costs. I told him that was unfortunate, but Thomas and I were already stretched thin with our own wedding expenses. Dad suggested I use a church basement instead of the venue we booked, like it was totally reasonable. I laughed, thinking he was joking. He wasn't. He told me I was selfish for planning such an expensive wedding while my brother had nothing. That since I was better with money, I should help him. I reminded him I was good with money because I'd been working since 14, while Caleb got an allowance well into adulthood. Dad called me dramatic and said family helps family. I hung up. For the next 2 weeks, he called every day with solutions. Cancel the photographer and give Caleb that money, return my dress and buy a cheaper one, cut the guest list, serve pizza instead of dinner. Each idea more ridiculous than the last. Then Mom jumped in, accusing me of tearing the family apart. She said Caleb deserved a nice wedding too, and I should consider how this looked to others. Then Caleb called me crying, literally crying, saying Ashley was upset they couldn't afford the country club she wanted, that all her friends were having big weddings and he felt like a failure. He said I had everything, a good job, a home, savings, and he just wanted one special day. Like my wedding day didn't matter, the guilt calls got worse. Dad said Grandma would be disappointed in me, that Caleb's struggles were somehow my fault for not helping him. He even said I was abandoning my brother by refusing to pay for his wedding. Last week was my bridal shower. My aunt hosted it, everything was perfect. But halfway through opening gifts, my dad walked in with Caleb and Ashley. They weren't invited. Dad announced to everyone that I was too selfish to help pay for Caleb's wedding while spending $30,000 on mine. The room went completely silent. My cousin asked Dad how much he was contributing to Caleb's wedding. He dodged the question. My aunt, bless her, finally spoke up, said she'd watched me work since I was a teenager while Caleb got rewarded for doing nothing. That she'd even helped pay for my textbooks because my parents wouldn't. She said everyone knew who the real disappointment was, and it wasn't me. Dad stormed out, Caleb trailing behind him. Ashley stayed just long enough to call me selfish before my cousins escorted her out. Then came the wedding day. I thought the drama was finally over. But as we arrived at the vineyard, I froze. Standing at the entrance were my parents, Caleb, and Ashley. In a wedding gown, Ashley was literally wearing a white dress, posing for photos like it was her big day. Sunlight hitting the fabric, her smiling like this was totally normal. My family just stood behind her. Proud Thomas squeezed my hand hard, not in anger, but to keep me grounded. He leaned close and whispered, "We're handling this right now." His tone was calm but sharp like steel. Nathan, our wedding coordinator, appeared beside me looking horrified, his professional smile gone. He quietly asked if I wanted him to call security. I nodded because I couldn't even speak. Within minutes, 2 security guards showed up. I explained that these people weren't invited, and that one of them was wearing a wedding dress to my wedding. Thomas stepped forward and told my father, in the coldest tone I've ever heard, that they needed to leave immediately or the police would be called. That's when I realized how much I loved him, because he was protecting me when my own parents wouldn't. Ashley burst into tears, saying she just wanted one special day, and accusing me of being selfish. Guests started gathering, whispering, filming, because of course they did. And that's how my family showed up to my wedding, trying to turn it into theirs. My coworker Ramona catches my eye from across the crowd. She mouths something that looks like, "Stay strong," while shaking her head at Ashley's ridiculous performance. Then out of nowhere, Grandma appears, moving faster than I've seen her move in years. Her cane tapping sharply on the stone walkway as she heads straight for Ashley. She looks Ashley up and down, her expression unreadable, then announces loudly enough for everyone to hear, "Showing up in a wedding gown to another woman's wedding is the trashiest thing I've seen in 90 years. And trust me, I've seen plenty." Mom immediately rushes forward, trying to guilt-trip me. "Caleb's in the parking lot crying," she says. "Can't you just let them use the cocktail area for a quick little ceremony? It wouldn't take long." I actually laugh because the audacity is unreal. They've hit a new level of entitlement I didn't think humanly possible. Anita, my maid of honor, steps beside Thomas. Her voice is firm, calm, but dangerous. "You have 60 seconds to leave," she says. "Otherwise, I'm calling the police and pressing charges for trespassing and harassment." She's already got her phone out, finger hovering over the screen. The photographer starts snapping photos, the chaos, the faces, Ashley's gown, my parents' expressions, saying he's been photographing weddings for 15 years and has never witnessed anything like this. My cousin Luke starts filming too, holding his phone high and loudly announcing that the whole family's going to see this online later. Security moves in, forming a solid wall between us and my family, while Nathan, the coordinator, calmly but firmly gestures them toward the exit. Ashley starts shrieking about her rights and how she's being discriminated against, which makes absolutely no sense. But she keeps yelling anyway as security guides her backward. Dad tries to push past the guards, but they don't move an inch. Mom's crying now, real tears this time, reaching over a guard's arm and saying I'm tearing the family apart. Then Caleb finally appears from the parking lot, face red and swollen, shouting about how I always get everything while he gets nothing. Thomas turns to my father, his voice cutting through the noise, calm, cold, absolute. Dad's face turns crimson, and he points at Thomas, shouting that if they walk away, I'm dead to him, and that he'll tell everyone what a selfish person I am. Caleb follows them, glancing back at me with an unreadable look, maybe regret, maybe humiliation. Ashley is still wailing about her so-called rights, stumbling in her too tall heels as her gown drags across the gravel. The entire scene feels unreal, like I'm watching someone else's life unravel instead of my own wedding. Finally, they disappear around the corner, and the weight of it all hits me. My hands are shaking. I realize I've been holding my breath the entire time. Thomas wraps his arms around me from behind, rests his chin on my shoulder, and whispers softly, "Do you want to pause for a while? We can start the ceremony later if you need time." I shake my head hard enough that my veil shifts. "No, absolutely not. They've taken enough. I'm not letting them ruin this day any more than they already have. We saved, we planned, and I'm marrying you today exactly like we intended." He tightens his hold and kisses my temple while a few guests rush over, worried. Angry on my behalf, Ramona reaches me first, pulling me into a hug. "I knew your family was messy," she murmurs, "but I didn't know it was this bad." I can't even find words, my throat's too tight, so I just nod against her shoulder. Nathan returns, looking genuinely furious. He tells us he's giving us 20 minutes to regroup, while he personally ensures my family is completely off the property and not hiding nearby plotting another scene. His usually calm demeanor cracks, showing real emotion. Anita grabs my hand and leads me toward the main building. "Come on," she says gently. "Let's fix your makeup before any pictures are taken." Guests step aside as we pass, some squeeze my arm, others whisper encouragement. Anita doesn't try to fill the silence. She just focuses on repairing the damage while I try to keep myself from breaking down completely. My phone buzzed in my clutch, but I ignored it. I couldn't deal with messages right now. Willow knocked and came in, her face a mix of anger and concern that reminded me of Grandma when she's had enough. She knelt beside me, took my hand, and said she and Harvey had suspected my parents might try something. So they'd hired private security to watch the parking lot and record everything in case we needed restraining orders later. I just stared at her, realizing my aunt had protected me more than my own parents ever had. She squeezed my hand and said they got it all on camera. Ashley's dress, Dad's threats, everything. Anita paused her makeup touch-ups to nod in admiration just as the minister peeked in, asking gently if I was ready. Looking at my reflection, puffy eyes, crooked veil, but determination underneath, I told him yes. I wasn't letting my family steal one more moment from me. When he left, Anita fixed my veil and told me I looked strong and beautiful, like someone who finally knew her worth. My phone buzzed again, lighting up with texts from relatives repeating Dad's lies. I started to feel overwhelmed, but Willow calmly took the phone from me, saying I didn't need to waste another second on people who thrived on manipulation. As we headed out, Nathan met us in the hallway to confirm my family had officially left the property and the gate was locked. He suggested delaying the ceremony 30 minutes to let everyone breathe, and I agreed. Guests used that time to offer support instead of judgment, coworkers, friends, even cousins saying they were proud of me for standing up for myself. Then Grandma appeared, walking slowly with her cane. She sat in the front row and announced proudly that I'd shown more strength today than most people do in a lifetime. People clapped. Tears filled my eyes as she pulled me close and said Grandpa would have been proud too. I nodded, unable to speak, and she smiled. Now go get married. You've made him wait long enough. I laughed through the tears, kissed her forehead, and walked toward the ceremony as the music began. Harvey appears beside me, eyes red like he's been crying. He offers his arm and whispers that he's honored to walk me down the aisle, that I deserve better than the parents I was given. His words hit deep. For the first time all day, I feel seen. As we walk, I spot Thomas waiting for me, and everything else, the chaos, the pain, fades away. When I reach him, he takes my hands tightly and says I'm the strongest person he knows, that watching me stand up for myself only made him more certain he's marrying the right woman. The minister starts the ceremony by saying we've already faced more obstacles than most couples do in a lifetime, proof that our marriage can survive anything. He talks about love being a choice to protect and stand by each other, even when family tries to tear you apart. When I say my vows, I promise to build a life nothing like the one I came from, one built on respect and kindness, not control. My voice stays steady, even though I want to cry. The kiss feels endless, and the sound of cheering fades into the background. For a moment, it's just us, no drama, no family, only peace. When we walk back down the aisle, guests are on their feet clapping. Harvey's crying openly, and I squeeze Thomas's hand until my fingers ache. At the reception, people keep coming up to me. One woman says her sister tried to ruin her wedding too. Another friend tells me she's finally cutting off her toxic mom after seeing me stand firm. Even strangers say they're inspired to stop letting their families control them. It's comforting realizing how many others have lived through the same kind of pain later. Luke shows me the video he recorded of the chaos earlier. Ashley's white dress, Dad's yelling, the whole scene. I tell him to send it to me in case I need proof later. He says Dad's already spreading his own version of events, and half the family is texting for answers. When I check my phone, there are dozens of messages, some supportive, some accusing me of embarrassing everyone. Thomas gently takes the phone from me and says we'll deal with it tomorrow. Ramona finds me near the bar and quietly tells me she's there if I need help. She offers to screen my calls or talk things through when it gets hard, because it will get harder before it gets better. The sincerity in her voice nearly breaks me. Before dinner, the photographer shows me some photos, not the posed ones, but real ones. Thomas standing in front of me when Dad yelled, me holding my head high as security led Ashley away. He says they capture what love really looks like, two people protecting each other and not letting anyone ruin their day, and he's right. Those are the pictures I'll treasure most. Thomas and I share our first dance, and he whispers that we're starting our marriage right, by putting each other first. He's right. Today proved we can face anything together. My phone buzzes with a long text from Caleb blaming me for ruining his life and his engagement. I delete it without replying. For the first time, I don't feel guilty for his problems. I just feel free. Later, my grandmother pulls me aside. She says the family house should go to the grandchild who truly earned it, me. I tell her it'll cause conflict, but she insists Caleb needs to face consequences. She hugs me and says my grandfather would have been proud of the woman I've become. The night ends in joy. My real family, friends, Willow, Harvey, and grandmother celebrate with laughter and dancing. When the party's over, Thomas and I finally go to our room. I break down crying over losing my parents and brother, and he just holds me, letting me grieve the family I wished I had. That night, I realize cutting my parents off was the right choice, even if it hurts. I cry until I'm empty and finally fall asleep in Thomas's arms. The next morning, Thomas shows me Luke's video posted online. It's gone viral. People are shocked, defending me and calling out my parents' behavior. Even Dad's coworkers and family friends comment that they finally understand why I kept my distance. Seeing the support feels surreal, but validating. Thomas asks if I want to cancel our honeymoon, but I decide to go. We fly to Hawaii, and I turn my phone off to escape the chaos. On the plane, I write a long letter to my parents that I'll never send, pouring out years of hurt about favoritism, neglect, and betrayal. Writing it helps me finally let go. In Hawaii, the peace feels like a new beginning. We swim, eat by the ocean, and try to focus on our marriage, though grief still sneaks in. I cry sometimes. Missing the family, I wish I had. Messages from relatives start coming in. Many admit they saw the favoritism too, and are proud of me for standing up for myself. Willow texts that Dad showed up at her house yelling, and Harvey threatened to call the police if he returned. Thomas says we'll look into a restraining order when we're back. Then I get a message from Ashley's mom apologizing for everything. She says she's horrified by her daughter's actions and is making her return the dress and apologize. It's the first real accountability I've seen, and I thank her for it, even if it doesn't fix everything. On the 5th day of our honeymoon, I wake up to missed calls from Caleb and a long message. He says Ashley left him, admitting she only stayed because she thought I'd pay for their wedding. Now that it's over, he finally understands why I said no and feels stupid for not seeing her true colors. I feel a mix of sadness and relief, but decide not to respond yet. Thomas and I spend the day enjoying Hawaii, walking the beach, eating shaved ice, and laughing together. That evening, we talk seriously about boundaries. We agree that unless my parents apologize and truly change, we're going completely no contact. It's painful but feels right. Thomas reminds me that protecting our future family from toxicity is love, not cruelty. When we return home, I find a card from my grandmother with a $10,000 check inside. She writes that she was saving it for my parents' funerals but wants me to use it for happiness instead. We call to thank her, and she tells us to spend it however we want. Back at work, I avoid talking about the drama, but my supervisor quietly gives me the name of a therapist who specializes in family trauma. I start therapy 2 weeks later, and it helps me realize I'm not wrong or dramatic. Just someone learning to protect herself. 3 weeks after the wedding, Mom calls. I don't answer. Her voicemail blames me for ruining Caleb's life and embarrassing the family. Instead of calling back, I text that I'll only rebuild contact if she and Dad agree to therapy and take accountability. Then I block her number. Thomas and I move forward with peace, cooking dinner, planning our future, and finally living without the constant weight of my family's control. Thomas and I start building our own traditions and redefining what family means. Every Sunday, we have dinner with my grandmother. She tells me my grandfather would have been proud of me for standing up for myself, and says I turned out right despite my parents' efforts to break me. 3 months after the wedding, I get a letter from Caleb. He admits losing Ashley was a wake-up call, that he's been spoiled and entitled his whole life, and he's finally getting a job and going back to school. He doesn't ask for forgiveness, only a chance to earn it. I'm cautious but keep the letter instead of throwing it away. 2 weeks later, I agree to meet him at a coffee shop. He's early, nervous, and different. I tell him how unfair things were growing up, how I worked while he got everything handed to him. He listens without interrupting and admits our parents always protected him from consequences. He tells me he's working a steady job and taking classes, and he wants to prove he's changing. I tell him I'll need to see consistent action before trusting him again. A few days later, Dad sends me a long Facebook message blaming me for turning Caleb against him and ruining the family. I block him immediately. It feels like closing a door I should have shut long ago. By November, Willow invites us for Thanksgiving and makes it clear Mom and Dad aren't welcome unless they can behave. Caleb is invited too. When he arrives, it's awkward but peaceful. Like maybe, finally, something good is beginning. He brought mashed potatoes he made himself and talked about his classes and job without asking for anything or mentioning Mom and Dad. Harvey asked how community college was going, and Caleb admitted it was harder than expected but worth it. We talked about building a life without them, about how chosen family matters just as much as blood, and how protecting my peace is worth losing people who hurt me. In December, Thomas got promoted to senior project manager, and we started planning to buy a house using grandmother's gift and our savings. It felt good to plan a future without worrying about rescuing anyone else. Over time, Caleb began texting me updates, his B+ on a test, a promotion at work, and later a job at a tech company. I found myself replying more often, encouraging him,